to be here with professionals of our country, representing various disciplines, to meet you, to speak to you, and interact with you, and to discuss the recently published Energy Sector Development Plan. At the very outset, let me convey my sincere thanks to Mr. Atawuda Jayawardena, President OPA, and Mr. Upali Gunawardena, President Engineers Guild of Sri Lanka, for arranging this technical session on energy empowered nation. Today I am not going to have a long speech, but intend to have a mutual interactive session with all of you so that at the end of the day we might arrive at some important conclusions. I am sure this will benefit all of us, notwithstanding whether one is a professional or a policy maker. It is interesting to say that today the world is faced with two primary challenges in the face of many climate change issues with grave repercussions for all of us. That is to say that how to increase our growth rate, especially in the developing world, with sustainable mechanisms, and also how to mitigate the environment consequences that are already happening as a consequence of our past actions. As a consequence, we are now facing with the issue of global warming due to emission of greenhouse gases and resulting disastrous environmental catastrophic events. Dear friends, see what happens in Chile, the volcanic eruption, and the most recent earthquake near Kathmandu in Nepal. We cannot isolate these incidents anymore as random natural events, and all these had a direct correlation with our action past and now. When looking back at what happened in Kathmandu very recently, this earthquake has happened near two converging plates, that is Eurasian and Indian tectonic plates. Therefore, the gradual change in readjustment in these tectonic plates will change the gravity of the whole region, resulting in many environmental consequences in the time to come. And also, Kathmandu Valley is situated in a very such a way that any flood will create complete inundation of the valley. It's a plateau. Therefore, melting of glaciers and ice caps in the Himalayas will result in complete destruction of this ancient historic city. Therefore, dear friends, while achieving our desired economic growth and development targets, it is our duty to preserve our precious natural environment. It is in this context that the Ministry of Power and Energy has developed a comprehensive Sri Lanka Energy Sector Development Plan for a knowledge-based economy. This is for the entire energy sector of the country, minimizing our dependence on importing fossil fuel for energy generation and to offer our citizens an affordable and sustainable energy in the future. After many years, we have been able to join the entire energy sector institution under one single umbrella. This includes subject of power, renewable energy, petroleum exploration, distribution, and also atomic energy as well. Our aim is to develop the entire energy sector institution into a collective synergetic mass so that efficiency and effectiveness of the entire sector will be improved, paving way for ultimate energy security of the country. I wanted to reiterate the cost involved with importing fossil fuel to our country. It has been calculated that approximately 50% of our export income has to be spent to meet our import demand of fossil fuel, which is equivalent to approximately $5 billion annually. This is an astronomical figure which needs serious attention. This should not be continued if our country is to be developed, and we need to find alternative strategies to meet our energy demand sustainably and economically. We need to create our energy independence also so that we will not be vulnerable to the external economic shocks. Having said that, let me start with the current status of power and energy sector as we pursue more energy options. In this regard, I intend to discuss our national plans with specific goals and time frames. Another area of discussion would be the envisioned transparent pricing formula for fuel and electricity, which we intended to introduce in the near future. This has to be discussed with innovative financing mechanism and improvement of overall performance of the sector. Your intervention and active participation as professionals are mostly welcomed by us. This is in contrast to the previous regime where decisions were taken by a few greedy individuals. An important characteristic of our strategy is to provide a vehicle for all stakeholders to have a voice on issues of importance so that policymakers can arrive at a more feasible and acceptable solution to our problems. That's why I am here today and discussing matters of importance with all of you. We all know that at the moment our country is inundated with social injustice, incompetence, corruption, poverty, strife, personal enmity, which now call for a few faith a program of national regeneration. In this regard, we have to prepare our business community, workers, professionals, and general public to suit this new era of good governance. This will not be an easy task by many means. Having said that, let me now elaborate on what we intend to do in the energy sector, and then allow me to obtain your valuable views and inputs through a mutually beneficial interaction so that we can adjust and redefine our policies, actions, and strategies accordingly. Dear friends, when I took over the mantle of Minister of Power and Energy once again in January 2015, I thought it is better for us to obtain the views from all stakeholders to formulate our future course of action before any decision is taken. This we did during the past few weeks with many interactions among the top professionals from the institution under the purview of our ministry, private sector institutions, professional institutions, etc. Sri Lanka Energy Sector Development Plan for a Knowledge-Based Economy 2015-2025 is now a published document which can be easily accessed through their website. Sri Lanka's new energy development plan, which is now in the public domain, is about reshaping our thinking and to prepare for a future uncertainty of the global environment. The policies and actions we have formulated are of two kinds: those that are currently being implemented or will be implemented within three stages, namely short-term, mid-term and long-term, as part of the Sri Lanka's ongoing development drive. The short-term intend to implement the action and policies required in line with the concept of a new country in 100 days program of government. Through the adoption and or implementation of these policies and action, we have to establish a new model via innovative approaches and sustainable energy utilization to achieve knowledge-based economy in Sri Lanka. The strategy is prepared under 8 thrust areas with the objective of providing reliable, sustainable, affordable and high-quality energy supply for Sri Lanka's economic prosperity. The first 4 thrust areas, you can see that, are namely integration of national energy policy formulation, a cleaner future through green energy, conservation and efficient use of energy, that means basically we called it demand side management. The fourth one, and customer satisfaction and service quality. The next 4 areas are dealing with timely development of necessary infrastructure, establishment of overall efficiency in energy sector institution and good governance, innovative financing for a diverse energy sector, and finally investment in research and development for cutting edge product development. For an example, just to brief you about the initiative we intend to take in the green energy development as shown in the presentation, is to have optimum level of renewable energy portfolio in our generation mix according as per the CEB's long-term generation plan, and open and transparent competitive bidding process. We also intend to promote off-grid renewable energy application for small and medium scale users. Now we are at the middle income level category and striving to reach the higher income level category status expeditiously, which an undoubtedly challenging and daunting task. How we can achieve this object and by what means is the problem we need to solve in the real time. As a policymaker, I am very keen on obtaining your professional and expert views to make our future development plan a success. I am of the view that Sri Lanka has not utilized its fullest potential of local expertise, especially in many fields. We need to change our own mindset in this regard. Now let me speak few words about petroleum sector, which I think our country needs to concentrate on a new perspective. It has been identified that Sri Lanka has some gas and oil deposits in the Mannar Basin. The precious natural resource should be used for the benefit of our planning of upstream petroleum development, which has just begun. It is important mention that during the first licensing round in 2007, one block was awarded to Cairn Lanka and the first PSC was signed with Cairn Lanka in 2008. Subsequently, they have acquired 3D seismic data for an area of 2,400 square kilometers and magnetic gravity of 5,700 kilometers and drilled 4 number of exploration deals ranging 3 to 5 kilometers below sea level. This was with a 50% success. Thereafter, commercialization of these discoveries is now being pursued. In addition, the second round of licensing occurred in 2013 and joint study blocks are on offer. There is a proposal to develop, we call it Dorado field, based on a peak production of 70 mm SPD with 2 production wells and subsea facilities together with an onshore gas processing plant supported by 55 kilometer length 10-inch subsea pipeline to the North Shore, and from that point to erect 150 kilometer onshore pipeline to Colombo. And we are going to use this gas to power approximately 700 megawatt of CEB power plants and to other consumers as well. We are now evaluating the commercial viability of the discoveries, sectoral demand analysis of the natural gas, economic feasibility analysis and negotiating the price and other terms with the developer with the aim of signing conditional gas purchase agreement. This will be a strenuous process and hope that we will be successful. This will be the one step towards energy security, establishing Sri Lanka as a proven hydrocarbon resource country, a showcase for future oil and gas investment. We also feel that this endeavor will develop a domestic gas market and diversify our energy mix and lowering our generation cost. Furthermore, it is expected to increase the government revenue through taxes and royalty from the gas and oil deposits. So far, the developer has spent nearly $200 million without any cost to the Sri Lankan government. It is interesting to speak few words about oil transmission from Colombo Harbour to Colonnavo storage tank. We all know through media the problem one has to face. Most of the pipelines are now covered by unauthorized structures such as house and commercial buildings. One has to face many difficulties when trying to repair those pipes. There are frequent breakdowns due to lines being old, and we have started refurbishment process to strengthen 2 pipelines from Colombo Tunnel to Colonnavo using our own indigenous resource and expertise as much as possible. Our engineering staff has to work under the very difficult circumstances, sometimes temporarily ejecting people who have constructed their houses on the pipeline routes. Plans are also under way to seek possibility of installation of a new single point biomooring system SPBM of the offshore discharging of crude oil. In addition, establishment of a pool hydrant system and associated facilities at Bandaranaike International Airport, installation of loading arm at Dolphin Pier and pipeline facility from Dolphin Pier to the tunnel gate at Colombo Harbour, establishment of new bulk depot at Northern Province are some of the key infrastructure projects in petroleum sector we are planning in the medium term. As a long-term strategy, we are planning to commence a feasibility study to refurbish or modernize the existing Sapakaskanda refinery, as this has been tuned to cater for the Iranian oil which we no longer are able to get due to US sanction. We are also considering the possibility of refurbishing the Trincomalee oil tank farm, which have been idling for a long time. Let me now briefly outline some of the infrastructure projects in the power sector which needs your attention. CB is having a rolling plan called a long-term generation expansion plan on lease cost basis for the future construction of generating capacity to meet the increase in demand for power as well as energy. According to this plan, it has been identified that coal will be the only viable option for power generation in the immediate future. However, this may not be a prudent exercise if we consider the correct energy mix, energy security of our country. In this scenario, we are now pushing for a more realistic and objective study for our future generation expansion programs. Nevertheless, it is pertinent to say that 2 major coal power projects are now at the planning stage of construction in the Trincomalee area. In addition, we need to continuously upgrade the existing electricity grid and add new grid substation to evacuate power to load centers from power generating station. As you can see, we are going to have a kind of grid connection with the South Indian power grid as well. And the feasibility study is now being carried out to the connect Indian electricity grid and Sri Lankan electricity grid. This is from Madurai in India to Anuradhapura in Sri Lanka, thereby transferring power both ways depending on the demand and supply. This will consist of 127 kilometer marine section along the sea between Mana and Panikkakulam in India. This is an interesting technical and economic decision of our country, as we are blessed with considerable solar and wind power potential, but due to the grid limitation and stability issues, we might not be able to absorb this full potential. Therefore, our technical and economic planners should consider the possibility of evacuating this non-dispatchable energy through this connection. It is interesting to note that we have a huge wind power potential, and especially in the northwestern corridor of the island. This has been found out that technical wind power potential with the wind power capacity densely about 8 megawatt square kilometer estimated as 5,650 megawatt. Our peak demand is about 2,000 megawatt, so you can compare the figures with the real wind potential here. And then the solar potential. You can see the map. The solar power potential in Sri Lanka has been mapped out based on the spatial distribution of global horizon radiation, or GHI, which varies from 1,250 kilowatt hours per meter squared a year on the humid highlands to 2,100 kilowatt hours meter squared per year in high potential regions. However, when we consider the land availability, the exploitable solar power is estimated as 6,000 megawatt. Of course, these are study results, and there are many constraints to harness all this potential energy, notwithstanding the economics of the scale. We cannot absorb all these non-conventional renewable energy due to technical, economic and social parameters. Dear friends, it is worthwhile to mention to identify action under energy security. We are now interested, that is to establish rapid charging station for encouraging electrical vehicles and commencement of preliminary study for the development of infrastructure for railway electrification. Customer satisfaction and providing quality service to customers have been recognized as another key area which needs much improvement. This is significant as we have almost achieved the electrification of the country, that is 97% right now of the whole Sri Lanka, and the next step would be to improve the quality of the service. In this regard, PUCSL in consultation with CEB and LECO has developed performance standards, grid codes, safety standards, etc. In conclusion, I hope our deliberation will help to achieve the aforementioned objectives in a professional and meaningful manner. I thank you.